All right, guys, and welcome to this week's podcast on the Esports Universe Community Talks. This week, we're joined by Barrage Jeff to talk about esports organisations. Of course, myself and Boffus will be joining you guys as per usual, no-dropped hosts this week on our podcast. And we're going to be jumping straight into it, of course. Now, esports organisations, for those of you who do know, is a topic that we have talked about previously. Prior, we had Aerox esports owner Davey on, and this week, of course, Jeff, he's going to be providing his insight into the world of esports organisations, of course, being the owner of one. Jeff, your insight straight off the bat. I guess we can jump in through the guys of Call of Duty because, of course, that's mine, George's speciality.
Speak for yourself.
So you can, well, George doesn't really have a speciality, at least. But I guess what's going on with Call of Duty with Barrage? I think that's probably the biggest question right now because, of course, Barrage, one of the bigger organisations, I think it's fair to say, at least in the amateur scene and the semi-pro scene. So I guess it's fair to ask straight away, what's going on with Barrage in Call of Duty right now?
Yeah, so obviously yesterday we announced, like, kind of officially that our team has left the organisation. We've released them from their contracts, and to be honest, that's us for the year. I don't plan to get back into Call of Duty this year. The lads were too far behind to make anything, to make LCQs or anything like that. So it just didn't really make any sense carrying on. And obviously Birmingham was a really disappointing event for us, just generally. So we focused very heavily on content, which we've still got quite a bit of content still to come out from that event. But yeah, that's really us done for Call of Duty for World War II, really. We've still got a girls team, of course, that'll be competing in any of the female pro league events. But as for the over 18 team, that's pretty much us done. Just because it's so expensive, really, for the amount of viewership and whatever else that it's currently getting. There's obviously some really good teams that could make pools, make a decent run, but the amount of money that we would have to spend for that to then potentially not get very much viewership, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I think that's generally speaking the problems that people run into with the CWL. Most of the organisation owners we've spoke to, I think Davey on the prior podcast said the exact same thing, that the CWL was causing those sort of problems where players falling behind. At that point, there's not really any point. So.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah,
I think George about to make a point. So.
I do think that is a good point, and I do think it is the danger of the CWL in itself, because especially when we have a European event, which we just had at Birmingham. Obviously, I was there, me and Jeff, and you have such teams as yourselves, Aerox, Bulldog, everyone who's there making decent runs, making decent placements, what have. But really, in the grand scheme of things, in terms of profit versus a loss, you're operating at mostly a loss there, because there's no way you're going to walk out of an open bracket against pro teams with any sort of money. There's probably not much chance that anyone you're going to get onto at least a streamed broadcast to advertise any of your sponsors or anything like that at all. And you're really only there advertising yourself to other people at the event, other people who are competing, other people who are playing. And you're just playing for pro points in that matter. So I do think it is fundamentally a flawed system. But I don't know really what changes I'd make to it. But I completely understand the idea and the motivation to remove yourself from that scene, because it is just well, at least for the time being, at least, where it's so far behind now. We don't have any more European events coming up, as far as we know, and the LCQ and the National League are the only other things that are going on, and even those things aren't particularly well funded or broadcasted or anything like that. So it's just not worth being in.
No, I think I mean, if Insomnia do announce an I-63 tournament for COD, then we might have a team for that. But other than that'll probably be us. The thing is as well, like you said, everyone in the amateur sort of scene, amateur semi-pro scene knows who Barrage are. So we're not even gaining anything by going up and turning up to the events and just getting our name out there a little bit, because the majority of our following is already in that scene and they already know who we are. So yeah, like I say, our focus was really to push content really after we got such an early loss, and we've still got a couple more pieces to come out that we filmed. So yeah, I think that's the way, unfortunately, it had to go.
Yeah.
Remember at I-60 as well, so this can kind of segue into a next point in a sense, is obviously it's the content for organisations these days is becoming so huge, like especially centric around the esports teams themselves. You look at Optic, for example, they were kind of the pioneers of it with Vision. You have now different organisations at an amateur levels, at our level, would you say, such as Cryptic, as yourselves, all making these kind of docu-series, would you call them, or something like that, where you're kind of doing all that content. I remember you guys doing that last year, same time last year, at I-60, because you had Will, who's now moved on to E United. Quality guy, by the way. Roomed with him at that event. Absolutely chill guy. And you guys are cranking out like player profiles and that whole CSGO thing that you did, which was totally awesome. And I think that is, well, I just want you to elaborate on that, I suppose. You elaborate on what sort of things that content side, that investment in that content brings to you as an organisation.
Yeah, I think both for growing our brand and also for putting sponsors out there, the content is far and above the thing that people most like to see, the thing that people interact with the most. And to be honest, I think that's the way that everyone's got to be creating content now. Whether it doesn't necessarily have to be video content, decent pictures, whatever it is. I think if you're going to spend however many £100 sending a team to an event, but not going to send anyone to capture that, I think you're just wasting your time. Regardless of what team it is, what it is that you're doing, I think you need to be aiming to make some content from it. So like we've got Meaty, one of our Hearthstone players, going to an event preliminaries for HCT next month, and it's just one player, but Toby lives in Amsterdam where the event is, so we're going to send Toby along and just get a player profile with Meaty and do get pictures, whatever we can really, just not only to promote ourselves but to promote our sponsors and stuff, and kind of create some content, because there's definitely nothing like that in Hearthstone. There's a lot of it now in Call of Duty, because a lot of the amateur and semi-pro teams, like you say, have started to jump on board with it. But I think in other scenes there's still a lack of content really. Certainly. So yeah, for me, I love content as well. Like I sit here for hours watching decent content. Like
exactly.
I love 100 Thieves stuff.
The heist and all that stuff.
Yeah, I love Team Liquid stuff. They do amazing content. So I sit here and watch quality content, and then I'm just like, we need to make our content better. We need to be doing this, that, and the other. And we've been really lucky with who we've had on board. We still had Will working with us at I-62. We had Toby. We've got some amazing people that we can like call upon to use their skills. So we've been really lucky in that respect.
Yeah, I think along with content as well, and you look at it on a more of a professional scale, I think it's actually a contract stipulation of being part of the LCS, at least the NALCS, that there has to be, or is it the Overwatch League, one of the two, where there has to be some sort of documentary series, or at least some kind of content created around the team specifically to draw attention to the overall scene. And I just wanted to get your take on this as well. If we're branding it out now, broadening it out, sorry, besides just Barrage, but more towards the Call of Duty eSport as a whole, do you think it benefits Call of Duty for amateur teams like Cryptic, like yourselves, semi-pro teams as also, to make this kind of content to bring space to the eSport as a whole?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think what people need to focus on slightly more now is everyone, like you said, is doing these documentary series, and it's brilliant. I mean, look how many views Cryptic got on their new series, like just in the space of 24 hours. It was amazing. However, what I do think is lacking is that we focus so much on the event, but not so much on the players' personalities.
Yeah,
and that's why things like player profiles and we've got trivia coming out this weekend as well. And things like that, we need to do more of that really, rather than just documentaries. And I think that's where people need to focus really, because everybody's doing documentaries, and we need to sort of expand a little bit.
Yeah. I agree with that sentiment. Bro, do you want to move us on to whatever the next segue is going to be?
Yeah, I mean, we can still talk about Call of Duty, right? I think one of the big questions I had coming into this podcast was something that happened early on in this season in the Call of Duty scene. Something I briefly mentioned to you before the podcast started was the Barrage youth team roster. So I don't know how much of an insight you have into the youth scene, because as far as I believe anyway, this was Barrage's first attempt to get into the youth scene, or at least enter one of the youth leagues. I might be wrong in saying that, because I've only been in it myself for a year and a half now. But I just want to ask, like, what was the story of that Barrage losing their youth roster to Cryptic, the one they were going to enter, and really what the decision was from that point onwards to just not bother to enter at all?
So basically, I've had Halley under Barrage before, so I knew Halley, and then he approached me about picking that team up. So we picked the team up, and anyway, that team ended up splitting up.
Right.
The initial team was different to what went to Cryptic. Yeah, so essentially that's all that happened. They just split up and went to different teams. I think two of them went to Cryptic, and whatever else.
Right.
So yeah, that's all that happened really. Obviously, going back to when I first got in the youth scene was with Halley, Jed, Defrag, and Insight, and we went to an SFCO in like
it's
2016 or something.
I think it's detailed on the Gamepedia as well. Actually, that entry.
Yeah.
The Scuff 5K, right?
Yeah. It was a good little event, to be fair. And then obviously I got to know the lads through that, and I still keep in touch with them now. So, and it's amazing to see Defrag breaking into the 18 scene and getting on big teams really. So and Alex was at the same event. Alex, who's joined Junior Lad. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see them sort of progress and actually make it into the top teams and start some proper money.
Yeah, I think actually coming on from that point as well. I think the value of the youth leagues as a whole, right, is extremely undermined. I think when you look at some players, I think a big success story recently, right? It's quite easy to talk about, Cammy from Bulldog Esports, who now has moved all the way up to.
I was wondering where you were going with this one then.
Yeah, it just got top 20 at CWL Seattle. I think that's a massive, I guess, success story, right? And so many people we talk to about the youth scene, or so many organisations owners, and I think the one, Davey, when we talked to him prior on the last Esports Organisations podcast, suggested that the youth scene has no value, or little to no value. And I'm not going to quote him exactly what he said, but it was something along those lines. So I think that kind of question about whether or not the youth scene has any value, whether or not the youth scene is actually good, and I don't just mean the LANs, I mean as well like the EG League, the VAL League, which is growing massively popular, the Esports Universe Easter Cup. That was an absolutely sick tournament. It's just a question. not to blow and whistle here, but I think it's a question of whether or not the youth scene itself has any intrinsic value.
Yeah, I think 100%, and I think to say that it doesn't is naive, really. It's not necessarily. It doesn't. I think if you look at it from a return on investment kind of thing, then probably not. Right. However, even in that respect, for Aerox, I would say that definitely does. They've got X Gamer, which they sell shit tons of that. I don't know how much, but if you're getting in there with the new youth setup, and they're going to be buying products through using your discount code or whatever it is, there's still value.
Off their face on X Gamer.
Yeah, like I think there's still value to that, and not only that, but you're getting to see the next generation of Call of Duty players that are coming through,
right? And
getting an idea of who's decent. Like it doesn't, you're building up a relationship with them already, and then if you build that relationship to the point when they turn 18, they still want to play for you, then that's amazing. If they're amazing, obviously they're going to go and play, and earn money.
Inevitably, that's the case. Yeah.
But there's no reason that you can't get your foot in the door, and and get those players on early and help bring them through, and gain some rapport with them early on, I guess. So yeah, I don't think there's certainly value there. It's just how you look at it.
Yeah.
I think that actually can kind of tie in as well with something that we've seen. It's not necessarily as prevalent in Call of Duty because we don't necessarily have like such a clearly defined tiered system in terms of who's tier 1, who's tier 2. But we have seen like a lot in CS:GO as a prime example. Actually, there's a lot of organizations who know they're not going to be able to afford a good team, but end up picking up a bunch of young players. For example, the old Swedish Epsilon roster, and then they just hold them to ransom contracts and then wait for someone to buy them out. Like it's like return on investment kind of thing like that. But like you were saying, if you can find a good youth player, for example, Halley, and you can build a rapport with him, build a relationship in a sense that when he turns 18 and he might want to play for you initially, gets an offer, and then you've got a nice contract buyout coming your way. So there's obviously that there is an element of return on investment, but for the leagues as a whole, in my opinion at least, there is such a high level of at least competition in it, where everyone wants to everyone kind of plays the same way. There's an element of inconsistency within some of the games, but to the extent it's generally the same people who win. But the money in it is I suppose good for under 18s at the moment. There's plenty of people who can play it, but I don't know if for organisations it's overall financially viable. I can certainly see it from like being publicity wise viable, because they're starting to stream more and more. The graphics and announcements and stuff on Twitter are getting more and more, and it's just everyone's competing against each other, so it becomes more and more viable as it goes on.
Yeah, I think it depends. Like I say, it depends on how you look at it, and it depends how you generate that into return on investment and fan base. You know, are they buying products through you or whatever? It's all good. It's all good exposure, which ultimately gets you sponsors and all that Gucci stuff.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Brody, you want to move us on then if we haven't got anything more to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think that was the big point, because we were talking about Barrage and the Call of Duty thing, so obviously that's our segue in. So I guess I'll ask now, I mean, for you guys, what are other esports outside of Call of Duty that you guys would be wanting to move into? Because obviously I looked in your bio at least, and it says Hearthstone and Rocket League, and that's like Rocket League's got to be probably my most I guess excitable upcoming esport.
Your favourite game?
I'd love to cast Rocket League. It'd be so fun. But I guess beyond that, at least, are there any esports that you have a desire to move into? For example, if you move out of COD permanently and you, I guess, going to a new esport, because obviously for you guys at least, that's a whole new audience which you guys can grow into.
100%. So Hearthstone is massive for us at the moment because of the team that we've built. We've probably got one of the best teams in Europe. So that's going to be where we push a lot at the moment. We are looking to pick up a Fortnite team because there is going to be a scene there. I personally love it, but I think I've got quite strict requirements for Fortnite. I think if they're not streamers as well, then it's not really worth it at the moment because of that
streaming
lack of
anything other than Fortnite at the moment isn't worth being involved about. Any Fortnite's taken over the whole streaming platform at the moment.
Yeah, so
it's very problematic, to be fair, though. Fortnite as an esport, like as much as I want to say that Fortnite would be a sick esport, like the logistics of Fortnite as an esport is incredibly hard.
It's only the same as making the logistics of the PUBG, which is turning out to be okay. I'm not going to say it's going to be like one of the.
So it's okay to mediocre, I think, is probably.
It's a mid-tier sport.
I think the difference between Fortnite and PUBG is PUBG has large patches of the game where it's very, very slow, and there's not a lot going on, and just generally the gameplay is much slower. With Fortnite, it's incredible to watch. Like just watching some of the better streamers.
Watch that Ninja event that was on recently.
Yeah, the Ninja event was cool as fuck. And I think doing more events like that, I think Fortnite's going to be. I mean, I love both games. I play both games, but I think Fortnite rather is definitely going to be the better esport as time goes on. So that's one we're looking into. And to be honest, it depends how much investment we're looking for investment at the moment. We're building up to that stage. We've got some, we're speaking to quite big players, and if we get some serious investment like we're hoping, then we'll be able to do a lot more. I'd love to get back into League of Legends. I love League, especially with the new the new tournaments, the new format that Riot are looking at. I think it's going to be much bigger, much better viewed in the
finally
UK.
Giving us a second tier.
Yeah, and I think that will be a lot better. CS, I don't really like UK CS. It has some of the same problems that UK COD has, where everyone's very immature and amateur and kind of doesn't get on with each other and all that shit. So
I've got something to say about that as well. Yeah.
I love Rocket League, like you mentioned. The good thing I love about Rocket League is general sponsors, non-endemic sponsors, absolutely love stuff like that because it's so easy to understand, and it's the perfect crossover between sport and esport. It's car football. It can't get much simpler. It's not like trying to explain what League of Legends is to a sponsor that's never had any involvement in esports before.
Yes.
League of Legends. Well, what happens is you have two bases. They've got
3 lanes, a jungle.
It's so hard to follow. Where Rocket League is the perfect gap for those companies to get into esports. I personally feel.
Yeah, I'd agree with that sentiment. And just going back to what you were saying about UK teams as well, from an organisational perspective, UKCS is good for low-key LAN events. Now, I understand that UKCS is actually making quite a rise at the moment. Obviously, with the major going to be in London, which I'm going to, is going to be a great time. And there's also Smooya, who's just getting onto big now, so this could be like a starting rise, even though there's been a lot of controversy around him in the past. But the Richard Lewis and a lot of other established journalists like that, people who analyse the game, will attest to the same thing, that the British, at least the UKCS players, often have the same problem of like having a tilt factor, having an immaturity complex, which is why so far every time that I've at least ventured into CS with Void is that I've always gone for at least a team in the Nordics, because the Nordics are chill as hell. They love their CS and they're usually very good at it. For example, I've had a Finnish team, I've had a couple of Danish players and a mixed team with Sweden, and now I've got a Swedish team, and then, no, sorry, that was the previous team. Now I've got a mixed team from Sweden, Denmark, Norway, which is great. I think it's great, and I think it works really well. And they're always of a better quality and at least a better professional Toldic standard. Obviously, it's difficult to get them to lands though, because they're only local ones. There's not like a big ice series in Sweden or anything like that. Yeah, so it's different. It's a different kettle of fish, but it's at the end of the day, it depends what you want to do with the org.
I think you're right. Like CS is great to watch. Like watching pro level CS is phenomenal. And I mean, just if you look at the major that Cloud9 won, that crowd, like that atmosphere
tilts me so hard because I'm a FaZe fan.
But I think there is an issue with UKCS. I mean, look, you discussed Smooya. Owen's a really nice lad, but he's another one that can't keep his gob shut on social media. So there is an issue, but there is some talented players, I'm sure. As there's more support, or as more players come through, like Smooya, then UK might get a better look in again.
Yeah, there's always that chance.
Yeah, I think orgs need to be doing more as well, though, to keep the players in check. If you want to be considered a professional organisation, then you've got to an extent, be seen to be keeping your players in check. The amount of times with the COD lads, I'd fucking message them like, delete that.
Delete everything.
I think we've all had experience of that.
Yeah, I think there's a fine line. You've only got to look at the open bracket for COD and all screaming at each other. But at the end of the day, at the end of that game, they're all like, yeah, good game, all that. And that's brill. But just on Twitter, everyone gets on the little keyboard, don't they? Like tapping away. And
keyboard warriors, yeah.
I think they're 10 men. But yeah, I think it is on orgs as well to have a bit of ownership of
that. George is laughing at the chat. To see something. I think that is something that orgs miss very often. At least I've always tried to, even on the lowest level possible as an org owner, try to keep control of the players that I have, even if sometimes that wasn't successful. But then again, that's not me. I don't think organisations often do that enough. I'm not gonna lie. I think even at the top level, some players and some organisations don't do enough to keep their players in check on Twitter.
I've got to disagree with that at least top level, because there's always like, I don't know if you're aware of it, but there's the find meme,
in like the Call of Duty,
like find everywhere all the time now. Like I saw E United, like when Clayster had the whole thing with his girlfriend cheating on him, whatever. I don't want to bring that to light for too much. It's obviously not an esports problem, but for example, like he tweeted out like 3 or 4 tweets just straight slandering this girl, and like I'm not even kidding. That must have been like quite a hefty fine, because he deleted them all, and Burns off was just like find, and that was it all on Twitter. But it happens all the time, even on broadcasts and stuff. There was an example at DreamHack Masters Marseille where JW jumping AWP someone through a smoke, which is just filth, but only JW would do it, and then Anders just goes, holy fuck, and then like he got fined for that in the end. Yeah, but I think there is definitely a penalty, and there's then as a result a deterrent, or at least an incentive not to act in such a way, which is not advertiser friendly, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like Call of Duty as well, again going back to COD, look at Pristini and that in the recent at Seattle, where against Ghost Gaming, I think it was CTF on Ardennes, where all 4 of them
teabagging.
Like, Pristini's shouting, they go for a listening, and Pristini's shouting, yeah, you suck dick, and then
all 4 of them
All four of them
Fine,
are there
yeah.
teabagging the same guy. It's funny, and to be fair, that's kind of what makes COD what it is. But and especially with the listening, you can't really help that. But
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
god, that reminds me of the problems of listening in the esports. Can I remember this is a massive throwback, but 2013 Team Caliber, Goonjar. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
that
not going
was
to
a
say exactly
long
what he
time
said,
ago.
but it was a long time ago. I think that's probably the biggest standout of a problem with the listening with players being immature. I'm not going to say exactly what he said.
This is the danger with listenings, though, isn't it? At events, like this is the danger, especially in Call of Duty, where basically everyone is an English speaker. Like, you don't do listenings in CS because A, the game's too strategic and you give away strategies. B, no one speaks the same goddamn language.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, they do, but they're not in the listenings, of course, because most teams are like Danish or Swedish or whatever.
There's some events which have done like TeamSpeak recordings after which they've selected little bits of it which aren't strategies and they translated them, whatever, which is quite cool, I've got to admit. But it's never anything that's particularly juicy. And like Zeus often does release his videos because he's Ukrainian. He's like the nade shot of the CIS scene, would you say? And he releases videos with TeamSpeak and stuff going on in the background. And it's just like there's instances of Doja. It just releases the whole video where Doja is just saying something like, "Yeah, let's go A and throat fuck them" or something like that. It's just like, what on earth? The Russians are so weird, but even in a sense, like that doesn't get them fine in the CIS scene because that's such common language. Like every sentence is just like "nice bliat," and that's the end of it. I had to bring that up. It's like it's such an odd point, but it's poignant. In the esports that I feel are growing massively, like League of Legends, Overwatch, CS:GO, there's such an air of professionalism. Whereas in Call of Duty, at least a mid to low tier level, and Gears of War, Rainbow Six, and what have, I don't necessarily feel as if it's there so much.
I think I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I think Rainbow Six is growing massively.
I don't know. If you saw that poll for Esports A Arena, the comments on that poll were pretty disgusting. I'm not gonna lie. Like some of the things
was that just COD people slandering Rainbow?
Though? No. It's Rainbow Six people just literally, I guess, trash talking COD and all the other esports. They were trash talking CS. I don't think Rainbow Six has any place to trash CS:GO. I'm not.
Rainbow is honestly a quality game, and if I could get into the esport right now, as the same way I was into it a few years ago, where I actually had a pro team, it would be something that I would more than definitely get into because it is gonna blow.
Yeah.
It is gonna, with the amount of support's going into it by ESL at the moment.
If they can decide what console or what platform.
They've already decided it's PC, isn't it? That's where all the.
That's better. That's a much better. I mean, originally it was Xbox, right? It was that was when some of the big LAN events.
When they first started, it was on PC and Xbox, and then they binned off Xbox but kept a Major League, which was dog shit.
That's one way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, it was crap. And then now they've just got PC Pro League, which is class again. I think it had something like 100,000 consistent viewers for the last Pro League finals. So I think the viewer numbers are definitely there. The game is very good. I've just noticed today that they've just released a new update for their test server that introduces picks and bans for operators, which is something that I suggested fucking about 10 years ago. So
I'm just working out maths on that.
Yeah, it doesn't add up. Don't worry. So I think that it's growing and it's certainly trying new things. Following the path of esports, that are already established. But yeah, I think it's definitely one to watch. Overwatch, I think, is shit to watch. And
I can't understand it for the life of me.
I can't understand it 100%, but I do somehow enjoy it. I haven't watched it recently, but when it first happened, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah, the thing is, it's gone from 300,000 consistent viewers to 100,000 now. And considering those teams paid 20 million to get in the league, I think
it's not. It wasn't worth it.
Dog shit. No, I think that's shit. They can't even keep their own branding. You've got to make a new brand. I just don't understand it.
And let's look at the fuel, hey? Let's look at that shit show of an organisational meltdown there. Like, Envious are really, as much as I love the organisation of Envious, the Dallas Fuel is one of the most poorly operated operations I've ever seen. Like, there's There's players getting fined. There's players getting banned. They haven't got a stable roster. XQC is making racist emotes in chat. They're picking up people who haven't had anything going off at all. And the thing that I hate about Overwatch in general is I like the game as it is. I've started playing it recently. I've watched the Overwatch League before, and I enjoyed my time watching it, partly because all the casters on it are straight fire. They have the best talent team in any esport, period. But for me, it's how are you as an amateur organization or as an organization who doesn't have the kind of funding or backing to buy a 20 million league spot going to get anything at all out of Overwatch? How?
You're not really. I mean, there's Overwatch contenders, but I don't know.
It's a gamble.
I don't think you are.
Even then, isn't that paying? Like, you have to pay to have a team in contenders?
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I don't think contenders is paying. I don't think it is.
Well, Optic have got an academy team in there or something.
Yeah. I know that the Overwatch League team's also got a contender spot automatically, but I think
which, by the way, is not branded as a different thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Overwatch has really developed that tiered sort of structure. It's just gone straight in at the top, and whether that works, I don't know. But I certainly don't see a lot of UK or Europe organisations jumping on that bandwagon.
Yeah, it's a big risk, and
I could be wrong.
The reward is not very high at all for Overwatch. It's quite bad, really. As good as an esport it is, which I think is kind of subjective at the end of the day. I think the return on 20 million, I guess, even though, to be fair, you can say the same thing about LCS, even though LCS is a lot more established
and cheaper.
Yeah, it's cheaper. It's like 10 million. It's 10 million, isn't it, for entry?
I don't even think it's that, honestly, mate.
It's something like that.
I don't know whether the orgs are gonna get their money back. I don't know how long your franchise fee gets you.
Yeah.
The thing is, you'll get revenue back from any. Do they have who do they stream with? Is it just Twitch?
Twitch, they're partnered with Twitch.
Yeah, so the Twitch will be paying them for that.
Is it not MLG?
No, it's Twitch.
I know there is definitely MLG.
They have a stream on MLG, partly because MLG have realised now that everything they do on MLG is just inherently going to go wrong. So they have to do a second stream on Twitch for everything these days, and I much prefer it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like the Call of Duty days where the Twitch stream was like an hour behind or whatever.
Yeah.
That's stupid.
I think, in fact, recently Twitch has been ahead of MLG.
I don't think it was ever.
I don't think it was ever behind. Yeah.
It's just no. Sorry, I mean in actual time. Twitch used to be delayed behind the MLG stream.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it's actually ahead now, which doesn't make any fucking sense. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, there is revenue that potentially is coming back to the organisations, but whether they'll actually see the return on that, I have no idea. But
that's the thing for me. I don't. For me, Overwatch League is how many teams are in the Overwatch League, Brody? Is it like 16? 12, 16?
12 or 16. I think it might be 12.
Either which way, it's like 12 organisations, some of which aren't actually esports organisations, by the way. Comcast has got a team in there.
Yeah, there's some weird
the Fusion
teams.
or something like that? The Philadelphia Fusion is Comcast?
I don't know. I know Comcast have a team.
Something like that. And there's a bunch of corporate companies which have bought spots in the Overwatch League. And same as in the LCS as well, but they're sports brands at the very least, not just corporate internet providers. Basically, I feel like it's just a 12-team spectator sport. Like, everyone's in there. Cool, it's great for the people who are involved, but no one else is, and no one else really stands a chance of getting involved. I get that you establish your top system first, and then you start to trickle down. Like, you're using trickle-down economics as like your model there, where you're basically hoping that everything will just filter through to the bottom, and you start giving some pressure to tier 2 talent, and then hopefully that sort of comes up. But this is what I think about the whole free market idea. Like, I don't like CWL as just being the only people who can hold events.
Yeah,
I want UMG to come back. I want that to be like.
No,
MLG
I don't really want UMG.
Well, okay, I want someone to be
a...
like UMG to host those events that aren't necessarily CWL verified, something like
Right.
that. And in League of Legends, I liked it when it was an open circuit as well. But to be fair, the League of Legends thing is totally okay because they've got that sorted and they're in League of their own. They're literally there's no one who can touch League right now. Potentially CS:GO, but this is what I'm saying. CS:GO is the free market esport. Anyone can host a tournament, but as long as it's not the major. Like, anyone can host a tournament at any time. It can be of any size, any prize pool, any venue, and people will come. And people will watch. And it's because of that reason, like the DreamHack Open and everything, that there is well-established tier 2 talent, well-established tier 3, tier 4 talent that gets brought up, and you see the rise of certain players up and through, and it's brilliant. Honestly, I don't think you'll ever see something like that in Overwatch. I certainly don't think you'll ever see anything like that in League. Well, you see it in League, but you won't see it in Overwatch.
For esports organisations in Overwatch, though, the risk has been. I mean, to be fair, we've already seen some of the risks. So I guess I'm not gonna. I mean, I'll just say it straight up. I mean, you've got to look at the biggest organisation in Call of Duty history, Optic Gaming, have completely trashed themselves over the Overwatch League. Essentially, 20 million. That investment essentially has cut them. They lost their Halo team. They lost their Gears team. Now they're losing their Call of Duty team.
You just reading out my tweet that I made earlier.
No. This is just. I mean, I could do, George. But no, I think that in itself, I think that's the first domino fall. Really, if anything. And I don't expect the same thing to happen to other organisations because I think Team Envious will survive it somewhat, even though Dallas Fuel have completely shitted up. I don't think Hastro has lost creative control over his organisation, but I would suggest it's a very, very dangerous move for esports organisations, and I certainly wouldn't go there.
Oh yeah.
I think you've got to be certain that the investor that you're going to work with, if they're going to take over a majority of your company, then you've got to be certain that they've got the best, that you are going to still have control. I mean, Hex is still the CEO, so technically he should be making the fucking decision.
Yes.
But that is not what's happening.
You can tell as well.
That's not how it should be.
Yeah.
Because what's the point in him? As much I love Hex, like I watch his vlog every fucking day. I think he's an amazing guy. However, he is only still at Optic as a symbol rather than actually doing anything. I mean, if you watch his vlogs, he's just spent however long doing graffiti art for Scuff and all sorts of stuff, and you watch his vlog and he's not really actually doing any work, and that's the disappointing thing, that I think Hex doesn't have control of Optic, any control. He's a CEO in title, but nothing else.
I think that shows as well. I think it's.
Oh, it definitely shows.
I think it's epitomized in this most recent CS:GO change they've just made. For Yugi and Snappy, for Shazam and Stanislaw. Usually, Optic Gaming would have been the organisation that was respected loyalty. So Stanislaw and Shazam would have been pretty much solidified in their spot.
Yeah,
but not anymore. And
plus, I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand how you can look at those decisions and think that's a better business decision to go with Overwatch and keep it. I guess for the investment you kind of do have to, but for other esports, and drop your esports where you're getting first place titles and you're more likely to that's George's, don't worry. But you're more likely to get your name out there as a team that just won a championship in esports. If you lose all three of your esports where you're winning championships, I don't understand the decision there at all. Well, I guess they're the small esports, but at the same time, you're still winning championships and you're still getting your name out there as the best team in that esport.
The thing is, I can see it from a business perspective why you would drop those teams,
right?
Because no, they're not gaining anything from that Optic team, are they? I mean, everybody knows Optic in Call of Duty. To be honest, they'd be better as a business move going away from the scene for 2 years and then coming back in with a massive team, because then their interest in that scene would fade away slightly. They go and focus somewhere else and then come back in, and everyone's like, "Oh, fucking Optic are back, woo!"
That's if the scene's there.
Yeah,
I don't know if it would be if Optic left Call of Duty. I think maybe 100 Thieves could be the only savior.
Well, I think Call of Duty is only a matter of time till that starts franchising, to be honest, and we see CWL.
Yeah, it's going to go the same way. Activision Blizzard, isn't it? So.
Yeah, I think you'll see that go the same way with franchising there, and then it would make no sense if Optic weren't one of those teams when they're such a big name. The worrying thing is with these franchises is that now with the current LCS, EU, and whatever else, there is those storylines where people can get relegated and people get promoted and new players come in and out and what have you. Whereas if you franchise, you don't have any of that, and it kind of takes from your content a little bit.
Yeah, I think I think we can sit here talking all day about the problems of the Overwatch League and the LCS and the franchising system and how inevitably it'll get to Call of Duty. And I think that'll probably be the only way that Call of Duty survives is through the Overwatch League. And how depressing it is to say, because obviously the last time that George and I said stuff like this, we got basically attacked on Twitter for it.
What are we saying?
To try and talk about, no, we're just saying
what's
that.
What's being put into my mouth this time?
Positivity, I think, is probably the way forward. Just try and be as positive as possible, saying that, Call of Duty will survive, but it needs to. I think the people need to.
There needs to be some changes.
Yeah, I think on an organizational level, it needs to change, and I think on a player level, I think the attitude towards the scene needs to change.
I think there's so many changes. Like I listed a big list of things on Twitter the other week. There's so many changes that Call of Duty needs to make, and they don't need to franchise. They just need to sort the shit out, and they need to, the teams that make the Pro League, they need to have contracts with them that they will produce content, like we discussed for other esports, that they have to produce content. Don't give them an option. And you see like Dexerto, they're making trivia videos. They're interviewing the players all the time.
What the organisations are doing.
But yeah, why the fuck are Call of Duty themselves not doing that? Like the Call of Duty Esports Twitter got updated like once last weekend. Like I'm sat there like, what the fuck are they doing? Like update your Twitter, let people know what the fuck's going on. They need some massive changes to the the way they run esports.
Again, I just think it's because the game isn't focused on it, is it? It's what we said before. We've had this discussion before. The game just isn't focused. Activision just aren't focused on Call of Duty esport.
Yeah, the amount we've spoken about this podcast after podcast. I think every week we get onto it somehow is just how to improve Call of Duty and how to save it, and it's just there are so many solutions and so many problems. But I think no matter how much we talk about it, it's just a case of like no one fixes them, no one does anything.
Yeah, I just seen Nova post 16+ rule for please, which if they're gonna, I mean, obviously they're talking about the next installment of COD not having a single player. So why not make it, just the multiplayer, make it 16+? It makes sense to me.
It's
it's gambling. It's a gambling law as well. Yeah, it's more gambling than anything. Some states in America, I'm pretty sure. I think there's one state in America, or at least Canada. It's either Canada or America where you can't actually gamble at all, so you can't play Call of Duty competitively. I can't remember which one it is, but I'm pretty sure there is a state law where you can't.
It was the whole
gambling
thing with
laws are more of the problem. Than
the whole
anything.
thing with PGO, wasn't it? The whole PGO. As far as I was concerned, when I had my meeting with them the other day to discuss casting with them, they were discussing it with me that they had to go to the Gambling Commission, then they had to go to Activision. And then they had to go to, who was it?
There was I know there was a third party. They said there was 3 parties.
It might have been.
Was it the ratings board?
Yeah, it was Peggy. That's right. Yeah, it was Peggy. So they had to go to Peggy because it was the game, right? So the game obviously being 18+. That was an issue they could get around by having 16-year-olds bring parental consent forms and bringing their own copy of the disc, right? They couldn't provide them because that would be like giving giving alcohol, buying alcohol for a teenager. But then the issue that what therefore came, Activision verified the event, said it was fine, but we won't give it CWL certification. But then the thing came back, like the Gambling Commission said, yes, okay, cool, as long as you have parental consent. But then they were like, actually, no, there's a caveat within this law that means you have to have it 18+.
Yeah, it's actually not the problem. They were saying in chat that actually there's no issue of gambling. There is an issue of gambling. It's not. I
think it's the parental consent for the stream at the very least. These guys could run this event without the stream and they'd still have the same problem as far as I'm aware. Vision OLT were going to have the same problem as well when they were going to run their LAN because I spoke to them about it as well.
I don't know if they were ever actually going to go ahead.
Okay, let's not slander it. But let's I do believe it is because of an 18-year-old gambling law. I think
there's so many problems.
I don't know if it's like a legal loophole or if it's a caveat that hasn't been fixed in the UK, but it's definitely like watertight in America, but like leaky as shit in the UK.
I mean, to be fair, if there are those problems, you could always just not broadcast the players at all.
But then what's the point?
Just have 18, just have actual gameplay on stream.
Yeah,
I mean, to be fair, it's a solution to the problem.
Like,
I think.
if it was a problem with broadcasting as well, then why are we allowed to stream under 18s playing games online?
Because you're not seeing them.
Yeah, but even if you're at an event, like you don't have to see them. But then if it's the broadcasting problem with that, then you can work around that caveat by doing that. But still, they won't let it happen. I don't think PGO were explicitly asked by the Gambling Commission, are you going to be like putting webcams on these kids, by the way? Just out of curiosity. I don't think that was something that they were particularly concerned about. Yeah, Davey, the event got changed due to some sort of Gambling Commission thing coming back onto it, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. Anyway, We've been doing this now for 51 minutes, including the break at the start, so that's been probably like 45 minutes then. So we'll come to a place to wrap it up. We'll take some questions from chat if we have any, if you want to fire those in, and then we'll get on moving out of here. Let's please make these questions
quick.
Let's make these questions quick, and let's make them not for shits and gigs. Let's actually have some insight on them as well. Let's not have like, is Brainstorm the best youth team in the COD scene? Because it's all known that they are.
Yes, then. I mean, I was going to say no, but I'll take it. We don't exist anymore. So.
What do you think of ego youth players in COD? We'll save that for another episode. I think we're going to have an episode on that.
I mean, we could have a full episode on that. I'm not gonna
We could have a whole full 2 episodes.
And Nathan, I will cuddle you. Don't.
It's like Pocahontas.
I love the way the only question is, Jeff, will you cuddle me, and what do you think about
Even that, it's not even a question though. He's just telling you to cuddle him.
Yeah.
It's not a question. He's making you do it.
Jeff, cuddle me.
No choice. You have no choice in the matter whatsoever.
Let me co-host the Ego episode. You're going to speak to Esports Universe about that one, dude. Invite Brody
and
Reese
you said
on.
that.
Invite Brody and Reese on for interviews. I tried to make this happen, but
we
Brody said no. So Steve, at this man, crucify this man on Twitter. But that, I don't think we're going to get
another episode of Esports Organizations where I get crucified on Twitter afterwards.
It'll be fine. Brody, do you know something about Plasmite CS:GO roster? We'd like to hear about it. Org with the
I do know, but I can't.
I like Viper's question. We'll go with that one.
Vipers, Org with the best potential within the scene. I mean, I'm pretty sure Jeff will say Barrage.
We'll go with outside of him. We'll go outside of himself. Come on.
I think Cryptic are doing good things. I think, obviously, other than ourselves, I like Cryptic. I like Radiant. Offers your shit, so not.
I am shit, mate. I'm just endemically doing nothing with the org right now.
To be fair, Cryptic are doing good things. It's just whether they can continue it with continue the level of funding and stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Do you want me to answer one of the other ones?
If you've got one.
I don't think there is a.
I mean, beyond do you think jobs
will
apply into esports as a whole, meaning any job? I don't really understand that question, Brody. You can probably interpret that one. I think he's trying to ask, like, are there any jobs with like cross-transferable skills or like markets that might be trying to invest in esports at any given future time?
I don't know. I mean, beyond working for events, like, you know, you could always go to like
event management, definitely.
Like beyond like, I guess working. Just working with events, I think, is probably the best way in if you're going to look for a job within esports.
I think a lot of sports roles will be transferable. You know, if you're working for a sports club or whatever, marketing, content, media, all those sorts of roles. I'm trying to think. Anywhere that you manage people, really. I mean, you could come and do a general manager's role, really, as long as you understand esports enough.
And the hierarchy and what have.
I think we'll find a lot of people that are in sports teams currently switching across and making the move.
We've already had that, haven't we? It started with Rick Fox, my G, the Echo Fox guys. How does Jeff feel about being the second best? That's cold. That's cold. What do you?
I don't remember Hex ever owning Barrage.
Hey. What do you think of Bulldog pulled their COD team? I think the COD team split. I don't think it was a Bulldog pull in it. I don't think Bulldog pulled the plug on it. Dan, Assassin, do you agree now? What question?
He said best Irish COD streamer. I didn't think they were any good. I'm joking.
Stop digging. Stop. We're going to end the podcast now before Brody digs himself into yet another hole that he can't get out of on Twitter without messaging like 10 different people. All right. So it's been a blessing to have my man Jeff on the episode. Good friend and a cracking time all around. We've discussed a lot of good stuff. Been very insightful, and we're glad to be back. We're glad to be back with the Esports Universe casting and all this business. We had a bit of a time away after the Easter Cup, and Brody's been in America, but he's back now. He's returned to lovely old Lincoln, and we're ready to get rolling again. So thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Esports Universe Community Talks. It's episode 8. Next week, we'll have some more announcements coming up on guests shortly. Keep an eye on the Esports Universe Twitter for that one. That's at ESPU_official. And obviously all our apps are on screen as well, should you want to follow us. Obviously, Jeff is the man, and his esports organisation is Barrage. So we all know them, we all love them. And anything else you want to say before we go off, Jeff?
No, if anybody ever wants to know anything, my DMs are always open, so just hit me up.
There you go. Brody, any last words?
No, the insight's right there. Jeff's the man.
Oh, thank God. Thank God you didn't have any last words. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. It's been a cracker. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.